Yeah, so I want to get into some of the individual issues that this team has had.
Yeah.
And we're going to start from the back out. You know, we've done a ton on the offense. And while, listen, like we talked about, we wanted to get into the second period stuff. Honestly, let's do that now. Because I think that goes along with like the shot volume and how disjointed this team has been. We know like slow starts have been the narrative around the Flyers for like as long as we've been doing this. Right now, however, they're minus 13 in the second period. Was it 19-6 they've been outscored?
19-6, yes.
Their goal differential, which is second worst in the league overall, is minus 13.
It's entirely the second period.
It's unbelievable. They're even in the other two periods. Yeah. And then the middle frame, yeah, man, minus 10. We're 9 games in.
Yeah.
They're minus 13.
Yeah.
That's insane.
The last 3 games, they've given up 3 goals in each of the second periods.
3 goals in any period, like, wow, that's a hell of an effort there. They're doing it on a consistent basis, allowing that many. Yeah. That's another just one of those things, like, but why? Like, it's just like, what is, again, if they knew the answer, they could probably fix it or at least, like, Band-Aid it. But adjustments the other team is making, they just get a little loose because the first period they had 3 shots, so they're like, we got to try more, and that results in less. Like, what the hell's going on?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about what's functionally different about the second period, there's one obvious structural difference about the second period, and it's the long change.
The long change.
Now, do I think that is the entire reason? No, I don't. There's probably a lot of noise here. However, we have talked over the past week or so about the sloppiness of this team and the fact that they have been messing up line changes. And I do wonder if when you have a team that isn't playing connected and isn't playing with your usual structure and is occasionally messing up line changes like the one that where they give up the breakaway because literally no one is playing right defense. Like that happened in the second period.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like, if you have these existing problems and then you put them in an environment where the second period tends to highlight when you have these problems, maybe it just makes it a little bit tougher because like this is it's a symptom. It's a symptom of the overarching problem, and the second period is just a little bit more of a stress test because the changes are a little bit tougher.
Honestly, that's the best explanation I've heard. Like, they talked about this on Flyers Daily today. It's been a part of the broadcast the last couple of games, and it's just like, this is ridiculous, but what is the issue? And it really is. I think the best explanation is they're just sloppy as hell right now. Yeah. Like, they can't break out. They can't string together passes. It's individual efforts that sometimes they pay off in goals, and a lot of times it's like, well, I'm 1-on-3, and now we're turned over. Yeah. And when that happens with the long change, just one simple, stupid thing, it highlights your deficiencies. Yeah. And that's really what's going on right now. I guess maybe they're a victim of their own like hype right now. Because no one like thought this team was good, but we were excited anyway. We're like, look, all these guys, like they have some pieces we like. And like a couple of them just come out slow. And yeah, man, we're 2-6-1.
Well, I made the point in the article I wrote last week, which if you're not a diehard, subscribe, become a diehard.
Right now, $48.
If you are a diehard and you haven't checked it out, I'm pretty proud of the piece. I think it was one of the ones I'm most proud of over the last few weeks. But to me, the key to this whole thing is they look like the team right now that we thought they were going to be at the start of last year.
Yes.
That is what's going on. And it's extremely disappointing because you want ideally your team to be going on an upward trajectory. Now, last year maybe, and you talked about it during the season, you're like, I'm sort of expecting them to be bad this next year, that maybe this year is like the surprising spike year, and then they're going to take, 2 steps back to take 3 steps forward over the long term the following year. Then we all got sucked in with Michkov scoring all the points in preseason and whatever, and suddenly it's like, they'll make the playoffs, maybe, sure, why not? But I think if you're going to say, why do they look like the team that we thought they were going to be last year? It's important to turn the clock back to where we were going into
back a year.
Nice Dark Knight reference. Think about it this way. Going into last season, and again, I'm going to go back to these 3 things that we talked about earlier that I mentioned. Couturier, the goaltending, and the defense. Going into last season, the Flyers and Flyers fans had no clue what they were going to get out of a Sean Couturier with coming off two back surgeries. No clue what he was going to be. Now, for the first 4 months of the year, he was real good. So that was a surprise. But going into the season, I had no idea that was going to be the case. He was a total unknown. In fact, it was probably optimistic to think he was going to be as good as he was the first 4 months of the year. The defense, going into the season, Sean Walker was 2 months removed from being a cap dump.
We were like, who the hell is this guy?
I wasn't sure if he was going to be an every night defenseman. Then suddenly, for the first 4 or 5 months of the season before they trade him, he performs like a legitimately above average second pair NHL defenseman. But going into the season, we had no idea knowing he was going to be that. So again, that plays into why expectations were so low. The goaltending. We didn't know going into last season if Carter Hart was going to play a single game for the team because everyone knew what was hanging over his head. The NHL and London police and everybody, they kind of dragged their feet. I think the Flyers weren't sure that summer if Hart was going to be available for game one. Instead, they get him for the first 4 months of the season when they're real good. Now, obviously, they don't have him, but going into the season, we had no idea.
I think there's a good reason they gave Sam Ersson a 2-year contract extension, having seen him play 10 NHL games.
Exactly. So what I'm more or less saying is that the answer to the question of why do the Flyers this year look like the team we expected we were going to get at the start of last year, the reason is because they kind of are that team. They are that team. They are a team without Hart, without Walker, without sort of 1C caliber Sean Couturier. That's why they are that team, because last year they would have been that team had 3 really big things not broken their way for 4 months.
We all silly like the mayor.